under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to see you here on this Monday evening. Every time I watch that intro, man, I just get fired up because it is Throwback Galazos, courtesy of your U.S. men's national team. God damn it, it's so great to be along tonight. And it's great to be back, doing Yanks Abroad again. And, of course, here on Stateside Footy. And I love doing these shows because I just love recapping the weekend that was for your U.S. men's national team players playing over in Europe. Before we get into it, make sure you do hit the like and subscribe button because we are on a race to 1,000 subs. Of course, I'm very appreciative to those that have already subscribed and to those that have yet to subscribe, man. I can't wait for you to be on board because it's just absolutely fucking awesome. Let me tell you, man. U.S. soccer at its finest. So make sure you do hit those like and subscribe buttons. But, all right, before we get into it, we do have a few news and notes that we do have to talk about. And we are going to start with somebody who is absolutely polarizing. And, of course, it's this gentleman right here, Gio Reyna. And it is official, man. Gio Reyna signs a 3-year deal through the 2028 season with Borussia Mönchengladbach. The deal was for around $7 million with potential bonuses, and it keeps Gio Reyna in the Bundesliga. Now, of course, there was rumors that he was headed to Serie A, and a move that I actually thought he should have taken because I actually think that league is a little bit better suited for him. But Gio says no to Parma. It says yes to Borussia Mönchengladbach. And I do want to discuss this a little bit because, quite honestly, I don't necessarily like this deal for Gio because, number one, I don't necessarily know long-term if he's cut out for the Bundesliga. Yes, he's incredibly talented. Let's just get that out of the way. But that being said, at least going to a team like Parma, a Serie A team, not a lot of expectations, not a lot of pressure. In a situation where he would be able to thrive, not only jump into the starting 11, but also keep that for as long as he's healthy and, put up decent numbers heading into the 2026 World Cup. But that being said, by staying into the Bundesliga, it's a massive gamble for Gio. I'm just going to say this, right? Because now all of a sudden you're going from Borussia Dortmund, where you couldn't crack the first team. Now you're going to Borussia Mönchengladbach, where there is competition at that position. So the first thing he's got to do is at least compete for the starting spot. Then if he happens to get it, then he's got to hold it and fend off competition. And understanding Gio Reyna, man, I just don't know if this was the right move because let's just keep it real, right? Gio Reyna is kind of a spoiled brat. From everything that I heard, he's not necessarily all that coachable. he needs to be in an environment with a strong coaching base that won't put up with this put up with this nonsense. I heard from one of my contacts that he rubs teammates the wrong way, and of course in Germany, that's not going to cut it, man. The German, listen, man, the German attitude has always been, you got to earn it. And nothing's going to be given for Gio at Borussia Mönchengladbach. But that being said, had he went down to the Serie A and he played with a team like Parma, I think he would have had a little bit of a better transition in a league that's a little bit more suited for his talents. But it is what it is, man. He wanted to stay in the Bundesliga. All right, fine. But that being said, we do have to talk about this because as of right now, Gio is like fourth on my center attacking mid depth chart for the 2026 World Cup. And of course, as we get closer to the next international window, which is coming up in a few weeks, I'm going to release my World Cup 2026 roster prediction volume 2.0. So we're going to get a very good look at this. And we're going to find out whether Gio has moved up my ranks. But as of right now, my 2 10s and the way that Mauricio Pochettino likes to operate, man, he likes to push high up with 2 high 10s because Christian Pulisic kind of, moves a little bit, floats a little bit more centrally. And he kind of play that left-sided 10. Malik Tillman's on the other side. And as of right now, I don't have Gio Reyna as a starter. I actually have him as a bubble player right now. And of course, a lot's going to depend on the season. And I'll just say this. If he goes to Borussia Mönchengladbach, wins the job, holds the job, and has a very good season, yeah, he's probably going to make the World Cup roster. But as of right now, I got him as a bubble guy right now. And a lot is going to be dependent on the season. And I just don't know if this was actually a good fit for him a year out of the World Cup. But that being said, as of right now, Malik Tillman is ahead of him. I even have Diego Luna ahead of him on the U.S. men's national team depth chart for the 10. But a lot could change, and it's going to start with the right attitude adjustment for Gio Reyna because, again, man, he's kind of a clubhouse cancer, spoiled rich kid. Daddy's essentially been pulling the strings, not just with his club career, but also with U.S. soccer. And hopefully now, maybe his attitude has changed. We will find out. But not necessarily a big fan of this one. Not necessarily a big fan of this one. The other news that we have to talk about is this guy, Paxton Aronson, coming back from Eintracht Frankfurt. Of course, he was sold there just a few years ago from the Philadelphia Union. Last year, he was on loan with FC Twente in the Dutch Eredivisie, and he actually had what I consider his best season as a professional. Clearly was one of their better players. And I know that FC Twente was looking to get him on a permanent. But that being said, they couldn't afford him. And of course, that ended up opening the door for MLS sides. And I know that Colorado wasn't the only team that was interested in Paxton Aronson. I know that the Seattle Sounders had kicked the tires on that idea. And it makes sense because as of right now, Albert Rusnik is dealing with health issues. And so it might have made sense to bring in a guy like Paxton. But that being said, there was no clear-cut avenue for him to kind of be that, He was looking for a DP contract, and he got one with Colorado. Paxton, signs the 5-year DP contract worth around $7 million, but could be worth up to $8.5 million with add-ons. And of course, last night we saw Paxton come off the bench for the Colorado Rapids, nearly had a goal. And the thing about this is, it's like, yes, Major League Soccer is a very front-footed attacking league, but it's also kind of a fast league, and it's also kind of a physical league. And so it's going to be interesting to see if Paxton's going to be able to stay durable in Major League Soccer this time around. But clearly the skill set is there. And against what I consider a bad LA Galaxy defense, he kind of sliced through him a little bit. Had a few touches last night. And, as soon as he gets ingratiated within the structure of the Colorado Rapids, he will be starting. And I'm actually kind of excited about this because I've been saying this for about a year and a half now. I think he's the better Aronson brother. No disrespect to Brendan, because I like Brendan. But as a center attacking mid, I just think he plays the position a little bit better. But that being said, it's nice to see that Paxton is back in Major League Soccer. And it's also nice to see that, Major League Soccer teams are kind of prioritizing U.S. internationals, because that's kind of been their plan now for quite a long time. They have the money there, the infrastructure is there, and now they're going to try to bring more U.S. internationals back to the league. I kind of like it. But that being said, I'm also a Major League Soccer fan. So me personally, it's always cool to see him. But that being said, this is also a peculiar move too, because Paxton is also on my bubble for the 2026 World Cup. And a part of me wanted him to stay over there. And if that meant him competing with Eintracht Frankfurt to try to get a roster spot, or him going back out at another loan, I kind of wanted him to stay out there, because I just think the talent is a little bit better down, depending on the league, right? It's all league dependent. Did I think that, he would go to another Bundesliga team? Maybe no. But could he have gone to a top 3 Dutch side? Yeah, of course. Could he have gone to a Serie A side? Yeah, probably. I just think that Paxton, had he stayed in Europe just for the season 1 year ahead, preparing himself for what life could be at the World Cup, I think he would have been a little bit better for it. But that being said, the U.S. soccer enthusiast in me is really happy that he's back in Major League Soccer. So it is what it is for me, man. I don't know, man. I'm really happy for him. And of course, he is worth a DP contract. I'm glad that Colorado gave it to him. Although, I guess you could say maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe jealously a little bit. I thought he was going to end up in the Rave Green. Just saying, I thought he would have looked good in Seattle Rave Green. That's all I'm saying. All right, so let's get to it, because we are now going to start the Yanks Abroad. And we're going to start in England, because why wouldn't we? That's where the epicenter of football's at. And of course, we have a few out there that are playing in Europe, applying their trade. And we're going to begin with Josh Sargent, because if there's any one player within the ranks of the U.S. men's national team that absolutely started the season on fire, it's Josh Sargent. 4 matches, 4 goals. The dude has just been absolutely on fire right now for Norwich City. And I say this with a little bit of a trepidation, because if there was any one player that really needed to make a move ahead of the 2026 World Cup, it was Josh Sargent. I think now for 2.5 years now, I think he's proven that his skill set is just a little bit better than the quality in the championship. That's not to take anything away from the championship, because I think it's a fine league. But that being said, I think he's proven, not just to himself, but everybody that watches him, that his skill set is just a little bit better. And there was rumor that this is now the second year that he's been linked with rumors to the Premier League. Last year, I think it was Bournemouth. And I think it might have been, I want to say it was like, not Ipswich, but who were the teams that went down? Like Leicester or something like that. He had a couple rumors that were linking him to, some of the newly promoted teams in the Premier League. It just didn't work out. So he stayed at Norwich last season, had another spectacular season. Yes, there was that 8-week layoff with the groin injury, but he came back. And as soon as he touched down on the pitch, he started scoring goals again. But this year, I really wanted him to make a move. And there was a move lined up for him to go back to the Bundesliga with Wolfsburg. He nixed that one because he didn't want to go back to Germany. He was betting on himself with staying within England, because there are 2 teams now in the Premier League that are really looking at him. And that's Burnley, and that's also Leeds United as well, too. And I think a move to the Premier League for Josh, I think he's ready for that move. But if nothing materializes, he's okay sticking with Norwich again for a 3rd season now. And it's quite the gamble. I'll be the first one to say it, man. It's a huge gamble for Josh, because if those Premier League moves do not pan out, and of course we still got about another week or so until the window closes. So who knows? Maybe he does get that Premier League move. But if he stays in the championship, I actually think that's going to be okay, because it's direct competition for that 3rd striker spot on the 2026 World Cup. I think he's going to separate himself, because again, man, he's just too good for the championship. But that being said, we don't know how Damian Downs is going to perform, although I do like Damian Downs. and Patrick Ajaman, who made the move to Derby County. He's not even going to be back on the pitch until October. So Josh is going to have himself a head start, which means come the summer window, come the September window, chances are pretty good he's going to get another call in. And I think it would definitely be warranted because he's absolutely on fire. The question is how far is this goal streak going to carry? Great question. But right now, he's doing everything right. And also understand that there's a new head coach and a new system at Norwich City. And it looks like he's adapted pretty goddamn well as well, too. Last week, he scored in a 2-1 loss, which was his fourth straight to Middlesbrough. By the way, Aiden Morris played pretty well in that game as well, too. Another U.S. men's national team center defensive mid. Not to be outdone is Haji Wright, who bagged a brace in a 7-1 win over QPR. Haji Wright, two first half goals, 2 goals that I consider absolutely clinical, absolutely silky smooth. And again, as important as the season is for Josh Sargent, it's the same thing with Haji Wright. Haji's national team tenure, or I guess you could say over the last year, hasn't exactly been all that great. He was supposed to be a part of the Gold Cup. He ends up getting hurt. They send him back to Coventry, and it looks like he's been able to get back on the pitch, and it looks like he's actually playing pretty well. So it's nice to see Haji get back into the scoring because, again, if both of these guys are going to be in form, scoring goals, they're going to get called up to that September window. 100% that's going to happen. So Josh and Haji starting the season absolutely on fire. I love it. The other guy that I want to talk about is Chris Richards because, again, I thought he played incredibly well against Nottingham Forest. This was Crystal Palace's first home match of the season against a team that, quite honestly, is is their, I guess you could say their arch nemesis because if you guys remember last year, Crystal Palace won the FA Cup. And of course, when you win it, you get into the Europa League. Nottingham Forest ends up taking that spot because of, some what I like to consider some UEFA bullshit. So these two teams don't necessarily like each other. And Chris Richards played incredibly well. Now, I will say that when you're going up against a team like Nottingham Forest, you're dealing with the two-headed monster in Morgan Gibbs-White and also Chris Wood. And Chris Richards held his own. And the thing that I love about watching Chris Richards is just his tactical awareness. He's so good off the ball, his movement, his positioning. The dude just seems to be in the right place at the right time to either block something, 1v1 challenges. The dude is just absolutely fantastic. And again, I thought he had another very good performance for Crystal Palace. But I will say that that second half goal that Forrest did score kind of looked to be in his direction a little bit. But that being said, it is what it is, man. As you're growing in the Premier League, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. It is what it is, man. But Chris Richards is already starting to silently get that respect as a center back in the Premier League. And Crystal Palace has themselves a good one right now. So I like it. And I like to see the maturation. I like to see that, that development, those players that evolve. And what a year that Chris Richards has had, right? Because I do remember him in Copa America summer of 2024, where he looked a little sketchy, but as he continued to develop, all of a sudden he started looking really good. And his performance in the Gold Cup, he was one of the best players in the Gold Cup. And it's no surprise that momentum has carried over to the Premier League season. So big up to Chris Richards. We got to talk a little bit about Tyler Adams. Of course, they played Wolves this last weekend, and Tyler Adams continues to be a bully in the midfield. I love watching Bournemouth play football. That's just the first thing. I don't know what it is about Bournemouth, but I just like the style of which they play. They just seem to do everything right. Now, granted, they're not the most talented team in the Premier League, but that being said, they always seem to be one of the more entertaining teams. And of course, this upcoming week, they travel to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to take on my Spurs. So of course, I'll be very much glued to the TV on that one. But this one, he played a solid shift, man. Picked up a yellow card, but that's okay. It is what it is, right? He is essentially the general on that in that midfield. Again, when you look at his passing ability, when you look at his ability just to keep pressure in front of the 18-yard box, man, he just does it. Tyler is right now in his prime. And I do believe that there's going to be some carryover effect with Tyler Adams. I'm just saying that dude is a leader. That dude is a general. I absolutely love him. And of course, he continues to play incredibly well. Brendan Aronson, Paxton's older brother. Now, here's the thing. I was happy that Leeds held on to him. I really was happy that Leeds, after getting their promotion, I was wondering whether or not that maybe he was going to get loaned back out to a championship side or whether he was going to get sold to a championship side. Leeds held on to him, and I'm glad because I do think that he's ready to make that jump to the Premier League. This last weekend, unfortunately, they had to go to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. And it was ugly, man. It was absolutely ugly. And he did get off the bench a little bit in the second half. But that being said, you're playing a team that is so technically gifted, so fast. And they're the type of team that just bullies you on both sides of the ball. And Brendan didn't necessarily stick out. But that being said, nobody else on Leeds stuck out anyways. And it's kind of hard to kind of evaluate Brendan when you're coming off the bench and you're already down 5-0. So it is what it is. But that being said, the season, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs with Brendan this season. But that being said, he is going to get a lot of time for Leeds this season. Whether or not they're going to stay up, that's yet to be seen. But hopefully next week we'll shed a little bit more light on Brendan, especially if he's not playing, Liverpool or the Arsenal or something like that. So it is what it is. Brendan, yeah, he got off the bench, but that was about it. Anthony Robinson, because we do have to talk about this one. In a 1-1 draw against Manchester United at Craven Cottage, he did get off the bench in the second half, and this way he made his first appearance. I think he had 28 minutes off the bench, just getting acclimated back to the speed of the Premier League, and that in itself was fantastic. It's nice to see Anthony back. I know he was dealing with injuries all over the summer. That's the reason why he was kept out of the Gold Cup. He knew he was going to play in the Gold Cup anyways, but it just so happened that, because of the injury situation, he's back now. And there wasn't a lot to write home about this one because, again, he only got 28 minutes in the second half, but it's nice to see him back on the pitch, and I'm hoping that as these things continue to progress, he's going to get more ingratiated back into that attack because, again, Marco Silva's, attack is very clean, very straightforward, right? They use Anthony as essentially as a wing back in that attack, and he's played well to the point where Liverpool wants him, United wants him, Tottenham wants him. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Anthony Robinson at this point. So the respect is on his name. So again, just like Brendan, there's not really much to write home about this one because, again, it was only less than 30 minutes off the bench, but it's nice to see Anthony back on this one. All right. Let's turn our attention to France in Ligue 1 because there are a few guys that we got to talk about in this one, and we're going to start with Flo Balogun. And, the problem with Ballo is that, again, it's the start-stop with the injuries, but he did play a full 90 in this one. So it's good to see Flo back. And again, the striker position, just like the center back position, man, it's one of the things that have to be fleshed out before the new year. And it's nice to see that Ballo's back getting a full 90. It's nice to see Pepe getting back. So as far as I'm concerned, these are wins. Now, again, Ballo didn't necessarily do anything to write home about this one. But that being said, just for the fact that he was able to go a full 90, and from everything I hear, there was no knocks, no niggles, so it looks like he's going to be ready to start again, which is exactly what you want. Of course, he's still with Monaco, and this is a huge year. I think it goes without saying, right? As of right now, all things equal, health-wise, I have Ricardo Pepi as my number one. But that being said, Ballo will do a job for you as a starter or coming off the bench. But that being said, I hope that both of these guys stay healthy all season. I hope they peak at the right time form-wise, and that they compete with each other to get that number one spot. Because if both guys are coming in completely on form, and peaking at the right time, it's only going to mean that the U.S. have two strikers that are going to be capable of carrying the load. So it's good to see Ballo back and getting a full 90. Timmy Weah earned his first start with Marseille. Looks like he played 63 minutes. So that's also good to see as well too. I was wondering when Timmy was going to feature, and again, a little bit of a questionable decision, leaving Juventus and ending up in Ligue 1. Now, I will say that he had an offer from Nottingham Forest that was agreed to by clubs, but of course, in principle, I guess Timmy Weah didn't want to go to Forest. It's understandable. It's understandable, especially with the Morgan Gibbs White debacle this summer. Players talk, man. And I just, it's interesting because Forest is a very good team. And I was wondering whether or not he was going to be able to step in there and start. And I think that's the reason why he didn't go to Forest, was there was no guarantee that he was going to start there, right? And I didn't think that he would want to trade being a role player with Juventus and swapping that out as being a role player in the Premier League. He wanted to start, and he got the opportunity with Marseille. So it is what it is, man. It's the French Ligue 1, not the it's not the Premier League, it's not the Bundesliga, it's not La Liga or Serie A. It's number 5 of the Europeans' Big Five. But that being said, he is a starter there at Marseille, and I would probably assume that Timmy Weah is probably going to have a big year this year. He seems to be in the right league, I think. And of course, the French league, it's top heavy. You know what I mean? And I think because of it, he's going to have an opportunity to score a lot of goals. So that being said, as much as I wanted him to go to Forest, he ends up with Marseille. Fair enough. He started 63 minutes, and I would probably assume, just like Flo Balogun, it's going to take him a few matches to get involved. But that being said, you expect a big season from Timmy Weah. We got Marcus here, Marcus Jekyll. Hey, good coverage for our USMNT guys. Yeah, absolutely, man. That's what I'm here for. It's good to have you along, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, we got to talk about Tanner Tessman, who plays for Olympique Lyon, center defensive mid. Now, here's the thing, right? Congratulations to Lyon. They staved off relegation. There was a lot of talk about whether or not, because of their financial difficulties, they overextended itself, whether or not they were going to be punished and put into Ligue 2. They were able to stay up. Okay, congratulations. That being said, Tanner Tessman, very huge piece for him, starts again for Lyon, played 90 minutes in a 3-0 win against Metz. He's got he had a 94% passing rating, and he won 5 of 7 duels. And so I like this as well too, because again, just like the striker core, center defensive mid has 3 guys that can start. Period. Let's keep this real. Tyler Adams is probably going to be the guy that's going to be starting at the 6. But that being said, when you think about Tanner Tessman, who's coming into his own in Ligue 1, you think about Johnny Cardoso that's playing at Atletico Madrid, right? I understand Johnny didn't necessarily look great this summer, but that being said, it's all about form and it's all about where you're playing. And of course, you have 3 guys who are capable of doing that are actually playing at a very high level right now. And so all that's going to mean is all it means for the U.S. men's national team is it's just going to be a good problem at that position. It all depends too. They could also run a double pivot with 2 6s. Who knows? I doubt that's going to happen, but you just never know. Let's turn to Italy because we got to talk about Christian. Now, here's the thing. He played great. He was like actually one of the more shining spots for AC Milan in a 2-1 defeat to a newly promoted team from Serie B. It's a tough loss because, again, when you have Maximiliano Allegri coming through the door, the expectations are absolutely sky high. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think that AC Milan is potential Scudetto winners this season. So obviously, Christian's going to be a huge part of it. Now he had 4 chances yesterday, 2 of which should have ended up in the back of the net. That being said, Christian is what, man? Christian, right? He's our best player. And I would probably assume that Christian's going to have a monster season. Of course, the brouhaha about the Gold Cup, him not coming in, I was okay with it because, again, when you look at the amount of games, you look at the workload these players are playing in these days, it's understandable why he wanted to. But that being said, it was also nice to see Mauricio Pochettino put his foot down and just say, listen, you just can't be a part of the friendlies. If you want to be a part of it, you're going to be a part of it. If not, cool, go rest up. But that being said, I would probably assume that Christian is going to play a huge part over the next 3 to 4 windows, as this team ramps up for 2026. But that being said, this last weekend with Christian, great performance, and a couple of those chances should have been goals, but I'm sure that's gonna turn into goals sooner rather than later. Marcus Jankel says thoughts on Paxton's move to Colorado. I think it's not great coming into the MLS so young. Here's the thing, right? I liked it. Now, I'll tell you why I liked it, because number one, he's going to be playing, right? And I think that was obvious when he got on the field so quickly against the LA Galaxy, and his movement is just so good. You can see that he's going to be a bright spot. He's a DP level player. But here's the thing, right? The one knock against Major League Soccer is simply this. It is not going to, like for players that are on the bubble with the U.S. men's national team, it is not going to prepare you adequately for a World Cup, which is why I wanted him to stay at least one more year in Europe. Whether that's staying with Eintracht Frankfurt and trying to trying to fight for a roster spot, or going back on loan, again, to the Eredivisie, to Serie A, to Ligue 1. Like Paxton probably could have done that, and he probably would have been in a little bit better position. But that being said, right, if it was again to the Eredivisie, then I actually think it's actually on par with Major League Soccer. So I don't think there's any difference between those two football leagues, right? So, but that being said, the cool part about Paxton is he's going to play. He's a DP. He's going to play. And for Major League Soccer, it's what they wanted. They are going to try to investigate U.S. internationals back in the league. From that standpoint, this is just one of many that I think are going to end up coming back to Major League Soccer. So here's the thing. For Major League Soccer fans like myself, I'm happy because I think Paxton is actually the better of the two Aronson brothers. But that being said, I don't know what it does for his status as a bubble player for 2026. And again, when the window comes open, I'm going to be releasing my World Cup roster prediction version 2.0, and it's going to be updated from the first one, which is in the you can catch the first one. It's in the library right there. And so every single window that's going to be updated as we get to 2026. Eric X, man, he said, hope you're having a great day. I appreciate it, man. Hope you're having a great day as yourself, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's see. Let's turn to Wes. And of course, Wes stayed with Juventus, which isn't a surprise because Wes has been there for 3 straight years now. And it seems like every year there's a coaching change, and every single year, he's out of the, he's out of the rotation, then he earns his way back into the rotation. And this is just par for the course. He's only sporadically played for Juventus, but I would probably assume that will change, because the one thing about Wes is that he can play anywhere. And when he usually steps on the field for Juventus, he usually does really good things. And so I'm not worried about, this is just the first early portion of the season. We're not even at the first international break. I would probably assume that Wes is going to get called in. And from that standpoint, I would probably assume that as the games continue to move on, he's going to play a larger part. Let's see. He says, okay, true. I hope he doesn't stay in MLS forever if he performs. Yeah, here's the thing, though, right? The good news about this is that if he does perform, and I think he will perform, that means his value is going to continue to climb. Now, I know there's this narrative that if you come back to MLS, your European career is dead. But that being said, there was interest for him elsewhere. But at this stage, how are you going to turn down the money? Like this was a financial deal for him, right? He's going to be a DP, so he's probably going to be making like $3 million a year, which is something that he wasn't going to get in Europe. But that being said, if he comes back to MLS and he has let's say he has like a 10-15 season, 10 goals, 15 assists, 10 goals, 15 assists, 10 goals, 20 assists, and he's here for like a couple seasons, and he's putting up those type of numbers, there's guaranteed there's going to be teams that are going to put in bids for him, right? So I don't think this is a forever, but I think this right now it's an opportunity to make a shitload of money, and I don't, I can't necessarily blame him. I really can't. Let's talk about Yunus Musah, because again, hasn't really featured for AC Milan. He has been in some match day squads, but right now this is all about the transfer for Yunus Musah, right? Because there's multiple teams that want him, which goes to show you the respect that Musah absolutely has, right? With Allegri with AC Milan, he's already publicly says he doesn't know exactly where he fits. They have given him permission to seek a move, and there are two teams in Serie A that really want him, which is Atalanta and then also Napoli with Conte at Napoli, looking at him like he can fill a massive role, because he can play the 6 and he can play the 8. And by the way, he can play him pretty well. But the thing about Yunus Musah is, like, whatever the team he has to go, he has to stick to one position, right? Because he can't just be a master, a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? Because again, this is a World Cup year, and he cannot afford just to continue to bounce around position, because he's not going to be able to catch form, right? And of course, I would probably assume that Mauricio Pochettino is going to have him on his World Cup roster. But the crazy thing is, like, he's not really a winger, and he's not a right back, and really he's kind of not even a 6. Really, he's more of a box-to-box player, and that's where he should be playing. The other teams that really want him are in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest want him for good reason, because again, they don't have depth at that box-to-box position, and Yunus Musah going to the Premier League is going to get a lot of minutes. But the other team that's intriguing, okay, the other team that's intriguing is Crystal Palace. They just lost Eberechi Eze, and because he can facilitate the box-to-box role, they have a massive void at that position at Crystal Palace. And I have to say this: going to play with a guy like Oliver Glasner, who is going to put him in the best possible position to succeed, means that we're probably going to see the heights of what Yunus Musah is going to be able to provide. And when you look at the U.S. men's national team, okay, outside of the 10, they need depth at the 8. I would probably assume that if Pochettino is going to play like a double pivot, it's going to be Tyler Adams on one side and Weston McKennie on the other side, as like that box-to-box deep line playmaker type role. That's going to be floating a little higher up the pitch. That's also a good role for Yunus Musah too. And one of the things that Pochettino needs more than anything are players on his bench that he can trust, players that can come on in the 70th minute if the game is tied, looking to hunting for that goal if they're one down. Yunus Musah in his right position can be one of those players. So right now, it's not even about the minutes right now for Yunus. It's all about the transfer. I think he's going to get it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Crystal Palace. That would be an excellent move if he ends up with Palace. All right, so let's talk about Malik Tillman, because he is with Bayer Leverkusen, and I think he's been. I want to say that he's been out maybe, and he hasn't necessarily featured. Let me double check this real quick, because I want to be 100% on this one. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, he has yet to make an appearance. He has yet to make an appearance for Bayer Leverkusen, but he is Leverkusen's Erik ten Hag's biggest transfer of the summer, and I would probably assume that just like Gio going to Borussia Mönchengladbach, for Tillman going to Bayer Leverkusen, to going to a big German club with the scrutiny of being their biggest transfer of the summer, this is exactly what he was looking for, right? He's looking to level up off of what I consider one of the better years of a U.S. international in Europe last season. He was absolutely dominant for PSV. He gets the move after what I consider actually being one of the better players at the Gold Cup. I think it was just perfect timing. That being said, again, as of right now, I have Malik Tillman as my starting 10 for the U.S. men's national team. 100% I have him over Gio. I even have Diego Luna over Gio at this point. But that being said, the same thing that applies with Gio applies with Malik Tillman, because here's the thing. Now, all of a sudden, you have two 10s in the same league. And so I would probably assume there's going to be some head-to-head competition there, right? And I always say, man, the cream rises to the top, right? And I think Malik Tillman is that guy. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how Erik ten Hag uses him. But that being said, it was the right move for Tillman. A year ahead of the World Cup, it was the absolute right move. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how he's going to perform. I would assume that we're going to see him very shortly. But that being said, this is exactly the type of moves that Mauricio Pochettino wants to see ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Because again, when you look at this team at full strength, the two areas of the pitch that we absolutely need, number one, we need all three strikers in form, peaking at the right time. And it looks like all three, Josh Sargent right now for sure, but it looks like the other two are getting into their seasons right now. But that being said, it's a long season, and hopefully all three can stay. But also at the 10 as well too, because none of it works unless they have somebody pulling the string. And that's the thing with Malik Tillman. Last year, he kind of dealt with some injuries. Obviously, Gio dealt with some injuries. But that being said, now you're in a high-profile club, and this is exactly what you want heading into the World Cup. And I would probably assume that in an Erik ten Hag attack, he is going to deliver. 100% he's going to deliver. Let's go to Spain, because we got to talk about Johnny Cardoso. Johnny has made his second start for Atletico Madrid, although I think Madrid lost this last minute. He played 68 minutes in what I consider very good football for him. And this is the weird enigma for Johnny Cardoso, because it has not translated to the U.S. men's national team. I think he's had 3 call-ups in the last 4 windows, and each one of them were just not that great. And this last summer was like his opportunity to really kind of solidify himself as being like that 1A to 1B to a guy like Tyler Adams, and he just couldn't do it. That match against Turkey, man, let me tell you, it wasn't great. But that being said, for whatever reason, man, Cardoso just seems to play well at the club level. Last year with Real Betis, he was probably the best center defensive mid in Europe for the U.S. at times. I mean, Tyler was pretty goddamn good last year too, but let's keep it real. Like Johnny, for whatever reason, there's a reason why he got that move to Atletico Madrid, right? And again, this season, starting off this season, a couple starts already in the bag, and let me tell you, man, I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and of course, now with Atletico Madrid, you're gonna be under the spotlight against Hansi Flick's Barcelona and Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid. So. And we've already seen Johnny do a really number against Real Madrid. So, just saying, man, just saying. This is the move that gets me excited, right? As much as Tillman to Leverkusen excites me, Johnny to Atletico Madrid, man, that's going to be something special. Let's turn our attention to the Netherlands, because there are 2 guys who play with PSV that play large roles with the U.S. men's national team. Excuse me. And the first one is Serginho Dest. And of course, he has made his return to the first team after the knee injury, sidelined essentially all year last year. And there were rumors that he was going to make an appearance in the Gold Cup. It just didn't happen. He wasn't ready. Okay, fine. So he rehabs over the summer. He gets himself back in the first team. And so far, through the first couple of games of the Dutch Eredivisie, he's already got 2 goals and assists. And this last week, he was absolutely brilliant. And this couldn't have come at a better time, because one of the things that Mauricio Pochettino has had a problem with is that right back position. There's not a lot that he can do with that one. He had seen enough of Joe Scally to understand that he's a stay-at-home defender. And, I like Alex Freeman, but I don't know if he's ready to make that jump, to the upper echelons of international football. But what I will say about Freeman is that I think his Gold Cup was good enough that he's going to get called back in. And who knows, maybe he might be a backup on the World Cup roster. But that being said, Sergiño Dest has hit the ground running in the Eredivisie. And so now you're looking at it, it's like, okay, well, from the from that position, from that wing back position, he's scoring goals, he's getting assists, and it's like, okay, that kind of gets me perked up a little bit, considering that now that Anthony Robinson is back in the fold, maybe Robinson doesn't come into this camp, but it's going to be the next camp. But now Sergiño Dest is probably going to be a part of this one, and so now we actually get to see what Dest looks like with Mauricio Pochettino. That to me, it's that little bit of mystery to me gets me absolutely jacked up and absolutely excited. And let me tell you, man. And when you think about the right-hand side, we know what the left-hand side is going to look like, right? Because Christian is going to move a little bit more centrally. He's going to float centrally into that 10 position, right? Because Pochettino likes to attack with 2 high 10s, right? Which means that left flank becomes home to the wing back, right? And of course, we have a really good one in Anthony Robinson, and a good backup in Max Arsene as well, too, right? So think about that right-hand side, especially if you have a guy like Timmy Weah crashing the box, and then you have Sergiño Dest on the overlap, man. That absolutely gets me excited. And I always tell people, when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, man, at full strength, it's an exciting football team. The problem is we really haven't seen this team in full strength in a very long time. So it's nice to see that Dest is back. It's nice to see that Dest is actually scoring goals, because, again, it's something that we're going to need. We're going to need goals from everyone if we're going to have any shot at not just getting out of the group, but also advancing the group. And lastly, I need to talk about Ricardo Pepi, because he did come off the bench, played 14 minutes. It wasn't an inspiring 14 minutes, but the point is he's back. And this is something that I've been waiting for as well, too. There were reports that he might have been back before training camp. It just didn't materialize. And so obviously it was a push in a little bit into the Eredivisie season, but now he's back. Just a little, just a quick little cup of coffee off the bench. But that being said, as those minutes ramp up, he is the starting 9 for PSV. Let's just get that out of the way. So now it's just about ramping up his minutes and getting him into a position where he can do what he does best. Because as of right now, he is my number 1 at the striker position. And it just is what it is. I think Ricardo Pepi is the best striker option we have in the pool, next to Flo Balogun. But that being said, man, you also have to keep an eye on Josh Sargent, because this is just what he does, man. He's just always in form, and he's always scoring goals. It's just whether or not he's going to be able to translate. Because if there was anybody that should have been at the Gold Cup, it was Josh. 100% he should have. But apparently it was non-football reasons. But all right, so just to recap, a lot of good performances this weekend in Europe, mainly in England. As Haji Wright backed a brace in a 7-1 victory over QPR. Josh Sargent scored in his fourth straight. Chris Richards put in another fantastic performance for Crystal Palace. And Anthony Robinson made his appearance for Fulham. Hopefully next week, Brendan Aronson, we have something to talk about, Brendan. It's kind of hard to really talk about it when you're getting absolutely crushed 5-0 to Arsenal. But that being said, and of course, Tyler Adams had another brilliant performance for Bournemouth. But that being said, I think the biggest thing to talk about is this move right here, Gio Reyna. Staying in the Bundesliga with Borussia Mönchengladbach. I don't like it. I think the right move was to Serie A. Yes, it's a little bit more technical of a defensive league, but that being said, it also rewards technically gifted attackers, which he is. And of course, you're playing a team like Parma. There are no expectations. There really is no pressure, because they're not really an upper echelon Serie A side, right? So you're going to go to a place where you're going to be able to compete without a lot of fanfare, and you're going to be able to play a lot, and you're going to be able to work your craft without having to deal with the pressure versus staying in the Bundesliga where there's pressure. Doesn't matter which team, you're going to deal with pressure. And what we know about Gino, but Gio, is the fact that he's kind of a clubhouse cancer. He's kind of a spoiled brat, and he's uncoachable. And you wonder whether or not that he's matured enough where he can just be coachable. But that being said, there's also other players in his position at Mönchengladbach. So he's got to come in, train, try to win a job, or at least win a position where he can be in the first team and get minutes, continue to compete to potentially become a starter. Then you got to hold it down, all the while putting up numbers to try to work your way into a World Cup roster. I just didn't think a year ahead. He needed to go to a place where it was a little bit easier to compete for a starting spot without a lot of pressure. And so he can just do what he does best, which is why I was one of the guys that, like, if there was anybody that should have went to Major League Soccer, it probably would have been Gio. I understand why he didn't, because at that point you're worried about whether or not he's going to get back to Europe. But that being said, a year out of the World Cup, coming to Major League Soccer, you're going to start. He's that good. He would at least would have started anywhere he went, and that's at least something, because you can actually work your way into form from that point. But I understand why he didn't come to Major League Soccer. I don't know, man. Let's see. Greg Perez says, spoiled brat with the most talent of our young guys if he can stay focused. Yeah, his dad's Claudio makes Claudio, it makes no sense. So here's the thing, right? Greg, it's good to have you along, my guy, and hopefully you hit that subscribe button. The talent isn't the issue. Like, he's probably one of the more talented attackers in the pool, right? He's up there with Christian as far as like pound for pound talent, right? But it's not about talent. Everybody's got talent. It's about maturity. It's about focus. It's about, can you put yourself in an environment when you're not the starter, and can you compete? Because nothing is going to be handed to him, right? Unless he went to Major League Soccer. But the reality is, for me at least, is there's a reason why he's low on my depth chart for center attackers. Because number one, he hasn't played really in 2 years. And number two, I don't know if he can compete. Because I think he was brought up being told that you're the best. And so I'm sure there was a lot of times where he felt like, it should just be given to him, right? And I think I guess if anything, this Dortmund experience probably should have told him that, like, listen, man, nothing is given. And if you rub your coaches the wrong way, you're certainly not going to be given opportunities. But that being said, I just think that him going to the right environment would have done him wonders, where there isn't any pressure, and he can just focus and work on his craft. And I thought the Parma deal made a little bit more sense from that, because going to Mönchengladbach, there are two other guys in his position that are ahead of him. And I just don't know if there's going to be time for him that's going to be able to compete and earn a starting spot and get the minutes needed for him to round into form. I don't know if there's going to be enough time for him to do that at Mönchengladbach ahead of the World Cup. Maybe next year, but this year, considering it took him forever to get through the window, I don't know, man. I wish him the best. But again, it was interesting, right? Because when it comes to our European-based players, I don't really want any of them to come back to Major League Soccer. Like, I had a beef with Paxton coming to Major League Soccer. But that being said, if there was one guy who should have, it was Gio. Because at the very least, he's going to start and he's going to play. And you know what? That would have been okay a year ahead of the World Cup, because at least he had the ability to round into form. And that's the only reason why it would make sense. But Paxton's a little different because he's kind of a bubble guy, but I just think him staying in the Bundesliga, I don't think he did himself any favors. Greg says he just subscribed. Excellent. I appreciate it. Let's see. Marcus Jackal says Pulisic is too caught up in the media at the moment. Fans are losing interest with him being their captain, I think. Are you referring to the? Are you referring to his show on Paramount Plus? Like, I understand why he tried to clap back, because Landon really kind of took the piss out of him. I think Tim Howard kind of took a piss at him as well too. There are a couple other guys that there were a couple other guys in the media like Alexi and some of these other guys that really kind of really gave him the gears a little bit for the whole. You were willing to show up for the 2 friendlies, but not the entire Gold Cup type of scenario. I understood his decision, right? And I was okay with it because I understand the workload that these guys are in. And also when you consider that the U.S. Soccer Federation themselves does not put the Gold Cup on a pedestal. As a matter of fact, there's a reason why it's usually B and C squads that play in the Gold Cup. Okay. So from that standpoint, I understand. But that being said, I also came from an era where if you're going to skip something, skip friendlies, especially if you're playing like New Zealand or Australia or Venezuela, national teams that you don't need to show up for. Because if it is about resting your body, there's plenty of FIFA windows where you can just not come in because the talent, it doesn't matter. But when it comes to tournaments, right? When it comes to tournaments, that's where your bread and butter is. At the end of the day, that's why we're doing this, right? To win silverware. So from that standpoint, I kind of take the Clint Dempsey attitude towards it. But that being said, I also realized that he was injured last year towards the tail end, and I understand why he did it. But that being said, did I think it was kind of tacky that he clapped back a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. But that being said, I get it, though. I get it. Let's see. Greg Perez says Parma has low expectations. I agree. It was better in Syria. Better in Syria, not Syria. Well, yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, right? Syria is right now. It's the league that is very technically gifted defensively. It's a very solid, compact defensive league, but it also rewards technically gifted attackers, right? And I just think Gio, just like Christian. By the way, Christian's a Premier League player, not playing in the Premier League, and he's doing a great job with AC Milan. And I just thought that could have been like 1A, 1B in Italy. Him going to Parma and putting himself in the shop window, because I also believe that Gio has the talent to play in the Premier League. I don't think he's mature enough to play in the Premier League, as we saw with his little loan to Forest. But that being said, if he would have went to Serie A, he would have put himself in the shop window, and in 2 years, he probably could have been in the Premier League. But that being said, man, again, I think it's a different beast playing in the Bundesliga. Let's see. He says Chris Richards and Tyler Adams are my captains. Yeah. Tyler is my captain right now, but I can see a situation where World Cup 2030, Chris Richards is a captain. I can see that. I think he's got all the qualities. Professional athletes should never go at former players that are legends for the USMNT. But here's the thing, right? I don't have a problem if they're right. See, here's the thing, right? Like I respect Landon's opinion. Same thing with Tim Howard. Granted, legends. But that being said, if they're wrong, I don't have a problem with current players standing up for themselves, right? I will say this. I think the nexus of the reason why some of these legends are speaking out is because I think a lot of times, like the best way that I can explain this is like, so when England shows up to an international friendly and they're playing like Andorra or Luxembourg, they just show up and they don't necessarily try because they know their talent is going to get them over. With the U.S., because there's no World Cup qualifying and there's nothing necessarily to compete for, they try to pull the same move in some of these windows when you're playing Canada or you're playing Panama or Australia, New Zealand, right? I understand it, right? They got to travel 16 hours by plane to come back to the U.S. to play, to play teams that they would rather just not play. And so they show up, they kind of go through the motions, and because of it, it looks like they don't give a shit. I will never question the heart of this team. I think it's a motivational issue. And I also think that under Greg Berhalter, they allowed him to get away with it. Because I do believe under Berhalter, the inmates ruled the silent. Under Pochettino, there is an expectation that you show up and you play hard. And I think it took a lot of players, the realization that like this ain't Greg anymore, right? And with that, we saw some interesting injury guys being sent back to their club mid window for interesting injury issues, right? I think that was the nice way of sending players home. But that being said, I think it's been ingrained now, especially after what happened with the Gold Cup, right? Because under Greg Berhalter, Christian would have been able to get away with that, playing in the 2 friendlies, but not the Gold Cup. Under Pochettino, he's like, yeah, that ain't flying here, homie. That ain't flying. You're either going to be a part of the group or you're not. And by the way, when you get here, you're going to play hard. Let's see. He says that Ronaldo always shows up for Portugal, so I want no excuses. Yeah. But also, think about this, though. What is the American mindset when it comes to football? That's different from Argentina, Brazil, Portugal, Spain, England. It's just different. There's no pressure and expectations from the media in the States. Sure, there's expectations from us, but we're also diehard soccer fans, right? But that being said, it's like, they fly under the radar in the United States. And so there is a little element of relax and chill with some of these guys. But that being said, I still think that when it comes to 2026 and the ramping up to the World Cup, I would probably assume that you're going to see this team most likely peak at the right time. I thought the Gold Cup was huge as a message and a warning shot to those that weren't competing, that a group of MLSers and a few European players sprinkled in, the fact that they were able to band together and actually play good soccer until they got to the final. I think that was a shot at some of these other guys like, hey, listen, we have options. If you don't want to come in and play hard, there's going to be a guy right behind you that's willing to wear the crest and do it exactly what I say. And I think that message was heard loud and clear. 100%. My guy, Peter Cahagius. What's up, Pete? Hope you're doing well. 8:57 in Melbourne. Good to see it, man. I hope you're doing well, man. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. All right, so quick programming note. The U.S. men's national team are playing South Korea on September 6th. So, of course, that live stream will be here on Stateside Footy. And we will begin the pregame about 30 minutes prior to kick. So that's going to be exciting. And, of course, we will have shows leading into it, especially once the roster drops for the international window. We'll be covering it. And, of course, not only will we be covering the game, but also in the postgame, I will be dropping my 2026 World Cup roster preview version 2.0 as I predict the World Cup roster after every single window. I'm going to update that and have that out there. I think you might be right, Marcus. I think it does release tomorrow, so that means I will be back tomorrow as we go over the roster. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow. I do want to thank Marcus. I want to thank Peter Cahagius. I want to thank Greg Perez for showing up in the chat today. Same with Eric X. I do appreciate it, man. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, the like and subscribe button, because again, man, this isn't just a U.S. men's national team channel. It's also a Major League Soccer channel as well too. I will be doing some USL live streams as well too. So this I got U.S. soccer covered, man, and that's really what it's about. as well as a little bit of a Tottenham Hotspur channel as well too, because listen, man, I'm just a Spurs fan, so it is what it is. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Yeah, man. I hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Take care, guys.
Rusted goalposts under faded